Thank you for joining me. This is Stas Kulesh. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, that's it.
Would you mind introducing yourself to the audience, to the members of the museum, and the different artists that we work with?
Right. So I'm a generative artist from New Zealand. I've been doing coding since I was 13, and then I've been on and off with that. But anytime I got to touch the code, I've always been enjoying the visual outcome. You know, there are types of programmers who would like to write a program, it does the stuff, and it says, okay, or done. And they're like super happy and satisfied. I never liked that. I mean, I had to have something visual. If it's moving, if it's doing stuff on the screen, that's the interesting bit. And basically, with the Web3 coming in, this whole notion of having fun while coding back from the childhood, it's just revived, and I really enjoy doing it in my spare time.
Well, we definitely appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. And what caught my eye was your recent project, GPTree, which if you dig a little bit into your Twitter feed, I came across the idea of using the natural language coding assistant. How did that come about? And just tell me more about that process.
GPT-3 has been around for a while, right? And people just using it for text copy and for whatever reasons. They try to, put the asking it to, let's say, explain a movie in 3 emojis. This kind of cool stuff is always on the edge. It's always something, not just the SEO kind of text copy. And I enjoyed it big time. And I have our own tool for my own business, which does web development and design. And a long time ago, for the small text copy pieces, I stopped asking clients to provide that. And GPT suffices that. It's like, it's enough. It's good enough for the small stuff, the title here, a short feature description there. And for that, we built our own tool, which is basically a prompt interface for GPT-3. I've read a lot about the Copilot and things that GPT-3 can do in terms of coding. So it sort of knows the language. I tried it with Python. I tried it with processing, and I decided to try it recently with P5 GS, and that sort of worked. I've been, I'm using myself with these prompts, and I asked, like, can you do a Koch snowflake, or can you do this kind of fractal? Can you do that or that? And in some cases, it just comes back with the examples that you would find on Stack Overflow, like just online. It doesn't really try hard. It just copies and pastes the stuff that it found. And it produces rather random things like lines and rectangles. But what surprised me is that this code is actually functional. It's not rubbish. It's not gibberish. It's not a set of words that look like a code. It's actually very precise to the library. I said, like, try JavaScript and try this specific library and try this specific algorithm. And I mean, this was probably a 10th attempt with the trees. And it's a recursive algorithm, right? You drew a line, and then you do one or another thing, like you turn and then grow this side, or turn and grow that side. And then when you're at the end of the line, you repeat. So this is where the recursion is happening. So basically, it just did that. Using this particular library, it was able to produce a simple stroke that a line with a stroke that did another line at the end. And then the strokes getting smaller. Essentially, this is drawing a tree. It's it. Like, it's a student level, I don't know, high school kind of task. Yeah, you do it at the creative coding session, like yourself. So that surprised me big time because I never expected the code to work. Because especially with this particular library, there is a specific structure to it. You set the rules, you do the drawing, and that is taken care by the specific function. And GPT-3 knew about the function that does the drawing, sort of knew. Obviously, it's because all the examples include that function, draw, literally, it's called.
Then how much did you go do any additional tweaking after that to add any, kind of human element design to it, or was it all primarily?
Of course, yeah. So initially, I think it was doing the rainbow, beautiful. You know, when it's beautiful, it's rainbow. Any 2 years old knows this. And I had to take it away, and I just used the tree drawing algorithm is from GPT-3, but all the aesthetics, I don't know. I looked at Japanese wooden prints, and I looked at stuff that I just genuinely liked, distant planets, futuristic things, and lots of work with noise because it's just too sterile when it comes out from the GPT-3. Basically, it gave me a tree that it was growing upwards, and I want it to be more organic, more like curved. It's affected by winds, it's affected by the nature, by the environment. So all that randomness I added, obviously, and I added colors, I added the palette, I added all this, you know, artistic stuff. But the core came from the robot. The core came from AI. And that's, I think, an underappreciated feature of this collection.
I agree with you. And I think it's a fascinating feature because we've been digging more into Midjourney AI. It's kind of the first really, you know, consumer level accessible AI, I would say. And there's still even a bit of a learning curve for most people to interact with Discord and figure out how to do all the prompts. But I mean, it's far easier than, you know, say Disco Diffusion or some of these where you're like having to identify a lot of different parameters, so to speak. Now, do you have any? Are you familiar with some of the GAN AI?
Yeah, I tried to lean on them. I have Midjourney, I have DALL-E Access. I think I've applied for Imagen from Google. When it's out, I will get it. It's so early, and the problem with that is that it can mimic any style. The thing is, it's like so difficult to find your own style. But the way I look at that is like, it's similar to what happened to photography when it came out. It's been oil painting for, you know, painting, and artists, they painted stuff for ages. You have to spend half of your like adult life to just learn to get to the level of a proper painter. And it's been always very competitive. You have to have a talent and stuff like this. But then the photography comes in, and everybody's like, how can you, I mean, it's not fair. It's not fair. Like, what are you doing? Like, you just pressing a button. And then Kodak box. Remember, I'm not sure if you know, like back in the early 20th century, they released the box, which is like $1 camera that people could use, not just, you know, not just the artists from photography. And that was expensive, difficult to, you know, set up, but everybody. And that was the revolutionary thing. And this is exactly the same what's happening with the AI stuff like Midjourney and DALL-E. And I don't know, I mean, there is a pushback, but that's just because it's so new and too early. I'm not sure if the early results will have some value in the future. But however, I mean, at the same time, it's kind of 50 years from now, it will be retro. It will be retro as the early Kodak films or early Kodak camera products. They are retro now, and they're like, yeah, well, they show this is a simple photo of someone's foot, but you see the features of this. It's kind of, yeah, and this is exactly the same with Midjourney. Whatever we produce, it's totally recognizable. It screams AI. I personally kind of, I don't like this style because it's too recognizable. It's too obvious. That's why I'm trying to find some edge cases, like, I don't know, writing code with AI, or maybe mixing it up. Maybe using this as raw materials would work, I think. And the more you can overlay, the better. And again, it's my personal preference. I like chaos. I embrace the complexity. I think life is complex, and whatever you do in art should be, you know, multifaceted and multi-layered. And I don't care about the tools, really.
Yeah, well, and that's why I brought up the AI the concept of Midjourney and all of that. Is it's actually as a tool just to throw ideas into and have it respond back can get you away from the or get you past the blank canvas state, right? That as I'm a painter, and so to sit down in front of a blank canvas, it's a lot more work to even just kind of get going, right? Whereas if I can throw some prompts into something and get some idea generation, some ideation, some visuals, like you were describing earlier, well, then that can trigger some type of a chemical reaction, some type of an emotional reaction that can just kickstart. And it's the same with the writing AIs that I've been exploring. It's the same. I've been using writing AIs as prompts for the image AIs, and now this idea of taking that to the next level of generative code. Because tell me if you agree, the GAN AIs, the Midjourneys, and the DALL-Es seem to me to be generative art on steroids. Essentially, no image will ever be the same, and there's a team of people who have built those and trained those to produce infinite imagery, right?
Yeah. It's exactly like photography. There are no two identical shots. Even I mean, even at the sports events, you take two shots, they are 0.00001 second apart. They are different, and they're not the same. And before that, when they had chemicals involved, it was even bigger difference. Like you would produce two prints, even if it's a machine, even if it's Kodak, all well-proof, the same chemicals for sure, but they're not the same. They will be slightly different, slight difference in colors, in tone and whatever. So this is stuff that's happening again. It's just the same cycle. And I liked your analogy about getting inspired, because when I prompted GPT-3, I actually wanted to try. I mean, that evening I was thinking about fractals and something that could be. I've been reading about chaos theory and watching YouTube on that, and I thought, okay, maybe I could play around with that. So, and then I started prompting GPT-3 to give me some fractal known algorithms. So this one, the particular one that I've used, I think it's Pythagorean or something. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's a known algo. It's not something that I invented, obviously, and it's kind of logical what it does. And it sort of knew about it. So I use that as an inspiration. And like I said, I added palettes, I added the noise, I added the organic feeling to it later. So that was a prompt, a blank canvas prompt. And yeah, I really like what you're doing with the text AI feeding image AI. And that's, again, the future. I think it will be later on, it will be video and then 3D rendering, whatever. So that's like not too far away. I really feel with what's happening now with DALL-E and Midjourney, it's just the beginning. We will see much more in a year, in 6 months, actually.
This has been a fantastic conversation. I'm glad that you experimented with that. It's the first I had seen of it, and now it's piqued my interest. And any other advice you might have for emerging artists like yourself, based on the experience you've had, and that we could share?
I'm not sure if I'm at the point of doing advice. Like, being nice on the internet, it's helping. Generally, reaching out and being human when you talk to another human. That's how we met, right? And I think that will, and not being afraid to ask for help.
Great advice. Thanks again, Stas, for taking the time to meet with us, and we'll end the interview here with some more outputs from GPTree.